if you ask me, Lil, how could we prevent your prophecy from happening? What's the solution, Lil? You're scaring me. What's the solution? Well, I would say this. When it's time to negotiate the new CBA in 2030, that's where the NFLPA can save the day. It starts by removing the franchise tag and not agreeing to it. It starts by negotiating a hazard pay bonus for the running backs who are indeed in a hazardous position. Okay. And if the NFLPA will not flex their muscles in 2030 during the next CBA to prevent the extinction of the running backs, then there will be no more running back. And that's my take for 99. Woo. And that is my take for 99. And since that take, Jonathan Taylor had a lot to make. He made a lot of money, 3-year, $42 million extension, and we're going to talk about that right now. But I do stand by my prediction, I really do. But we got to talk about Jonathan Taylor right now as, once again, 3 years, $42 million extension. Now, Zach, does this deal change the landscape of the running back market?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. Over the course of the last few weeks, my opinion has changed a little bit on this topic. And I'll start off by saying this, right? Like, I think, first of all, Jonathan Taylor, getting the contract, getting the money he was desiring throughout the last couple of weeks, good for him. It's always good to see a guy in his position who's been a really good player over the course of the last few years get paid, especially when he's at a position that isn't really known, especially recently, to getting that kind of money. And I think it's an interesting conversation when it comes to the overall value of the running back position, right? Because I look at the Giants as another example, right? And this was really the first situation where it opened my eyes to this. It's like, man, anyone who watched the Giants, not only last year, at times this year, but recently, like, Saquon Barkley is the guy that really makes their offense go. And without him, we're seeing it. Like, they are just a completely different offense, and he's the most valuable piece. So in that instance, this past offseason, if I were the New York Giants, looking back, like, the move was probably just to lock Saquon up and franchise tag Daniel Jones, because it's clear without Saquon, this Giants offense is just totally different. You look at the other team in town, the New York Jets, right? They were 5-2 last year to open the season before they went to Denver in week 7, and Breece Hall blew out his knee and he was just out for the year. And that completely changed the Jets season. They were a different football team after that without their go-to bell cow running back. You have other guys like, Derrick Henry. If you were to take him off the Titans, they would just be a totally different team. We spoke about Christian McCaffrey and how right now I would consider him, if I had a vote, to be the MVP frontrunner, because since he's gotten to San Francisco, this offense has just looked totally, totally different. So I do think when you do have, in those rare instances, running backs that are just clearly the best and most focal point of your offense, they are worth paying and they're worth giving that money to. But then at the other end of the spectrum, it's interesting. Like, literally the week after Jonathan Taylor gets paid and he plays on Sunday, Zach Moss for the Colts just continues to ball out. And that's a guy that they got in a very low-key, trade when Buffalo swapped him and Nyheim Hines. We've seen countless examples of teams that lose their starting running back, bring in another guy, and the drop-off isn't that big. So I'm just curious to see, like, how this ages for the Colts. I'm very happy that Jonathan Taylor got his money. He's worked very hard for it. He's a really good player. But at the same time, like, Zach Moss has been really good for this Colts team, and he's been making an impact. And I think they could be a solid 1-2 punch down the line. But if you're a Colts fan watching Zach Moss just go crazy again on Sunday, I'm curious how you're thinking about this Jonathan Taylor deal, because especially after he really struggled last year, like, this would have made a lot of sense if the Colts were to pay him 2 years ago after he had that breakout season and was looking like not only one of the best running backs, but one of the best players in the league. But last year, he really struggled. And so far this year, he's only played one game, whatever. But the point is, Zach Moss, a guy that they kind of got out of nowhere, has been looking really good. So I think each situation is different. There are some instances where it's clear, like a Saquon Barkley, like a Breece Hall, that, okay, it's probably worth it to pay these guys. But at the same time, like, I don't know if the Colts would fall into that category, considering Taylor's really struggled last year and Zach Moss has looked really good so far.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to impact the landscape of the running back market, because the running back market is different from the quarterback market. When you talk about the AVA, which is, annual value average, right? That always increases after a quarterback gets paid. So, for example, you got one quarterback that gets paid, then the next quarterback is probably going to top that. That's how the quarterback market works. It goes up. With the running back market, there is a trend in the sense that most of them either get tagged or they get 1-year deals, but there's always an outlier in the couple years that go by. There's one outlier, and Jonathan Taylor is a guy you're looking at as the outlier because he's the first guy, I believe, in the last 2 years to get a deal averaging more than $10 million per year for a running back. So clearly it's an outlier of a contract, and I don't think it's going to change a lot more going forward. And I'm going to tell you why this scenario is different and why I disagree. I actually think they should have paid Jonathan Taylor in this scenario because when you look at everything that's going on with AR-15, a quarterback that they're ushering in, he started the year, but we're talking about 3 injuries in 5 weeks. And the way how they running him recklessly, they're actually running him into the ground. And that's supposed to be their investment, long-term investment, that eventually, if he's that guy, they will pay when that time comes. Now, it's like, okay, do we continue running him into the ground? We talking about concussion. We talking about a knee injury that was minor. And now we talking about a shoulder joint injury that is going to keep him out for a couple weeks. Okay, fine. They actually paid Jonathan Taylor for the record before he got hurt with the shoulder. That's important. Why? Because we talk about, okay, I could actually run my running back into the ground and pay him a little bit more. Because clearly, when you talk about contracts, right, what AR-15 is going to get is going to be in a different stratosphere from what this rinky-dink contract is. Now, it's not rinky-dink from a running back perspective. That's like, yeah, hell yeah. Give me $42 million to be a running back in the NFL, today's NFL. I'll take it. But from a quarterback perspective, comparing quarterback to running back, it's rinky-dink. I just pay you $42 million to run you into the ground so I can keep my quarterback, who I'm going to invest more money in, upright. So even though I got a guy like Zach Moss, yeah, I'm going to run the hell out that football. So even if, JT clearly is going to start, he's going to get the majority of the reps as he eases his way into the flow of the game. But Zach Moss is going to get his touches. I don't think he's going to be buried on the depth chart. He earned it. I'm just going to run the ball. I'm going to be a run-first team. This way, I don't have to run my long-term investment into the ground. I pay you a little extra so I can make sure that when it's time to pay him, he's upright and healthy. That's one way of looking at it. Another two, real quickly, Zach, before I pass it back to you, is that the rookie quarterback, clearly, let's go back to the rookie quarterback. That's the rare instance where the situation's lined up. You're ushering in a new coach, new quarterback. That's why they paid this running back, even with the success that Zach Moss has had. And also, he applied public pressure. So when you talk about this Zoom meeting that didn't go well, look at Saquon Barkley. He deserved it. He deserved a 1-year contract because he caved. Immediately after that Zoom contract, he was the first one to cave. Yeah, I'm out of here. Give me that 1-year deal. Then shortly after that, Jacobs did the same thing. Give me that 1-year deal. Eckler, Ben got that 1-year deal. Now, we have to do the same process over again next year, which doesn't make any sense. So, if what happened to Nick Chubb, knock on wood, happens to Saquon Barkley when he returns, or Austin Eckler, or Josh Jacobs, then they're going to be ass out, right? That's the risk when you're playing a risky position to play on a 1-year deal, is that there's not a guarantee. First of all, even if you are healthy, you are another year removed from your prime. Why would I pay you now? Why? If I didn't pay you back then, why would I pay you now? So I don't like that. Jonathan Taylor was the only one out of these guys at the Zoom meeting that said, you know what? Hold up. Y'all can cave. Go ahead. I'm actually going to request a trade and put public pressure on the Colts, who's ushering in a rookie coach, a rookie quarterback, and it worked out for him, and that's why he got paid. Now, for these other guys that's on 1-year deals, maybe Eckler, I think if you ask me today, I think Eckler may, because he does a lot more as far as catching out of the backfield. And he's going to be more important to this offense. If I'm Eckler, upon my return, I'm trying to get that contract because Mike Williams is out of the picture, right? The Chargers still got championship aspirations. They just paid Justin Herbert. He's not getting any cheaper. He's going to get more expensive. I'm more valuable to this team upon my return, coming from injury. So yeah, you either got to pay me, or if I come back and I ball out, I'm paying for something on the back end. He has an opportunity to get what Jonathan Taylor got. I don't know about the rest of these guys. I think it's an outlier, and that's how I answer the question.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point with Eckler. It's funny. I was just going to go like the same direction with Barkley. Like if you're Saquon and you see the way the Giants have looked on Sunday and throughout the course of this season, like it's clear the season is going nowhere. Like, would you even want to come back? Like, is it even worth that risk? Like you said, if Nick Chubb, that freak situation, that could happen to anyone at any time. Like, would you want to take that risk? Like, I don't know.
The one example here is I didn't think the Giants were good with him on the field anyway. And that was evident when they got steamrolled against the Cowboys, when they had to come back against the Cardinals. Whether he was on the field or not on the field, the Giants are lacking resources around the quarterback. The offensive line stinks. I think it's bigger than Saquon Barkley, although I do think he's a vocal point of this offense.
Right. So if you're him, like, why would you want to come back? Like,
yeah, I wouldn't come back if I'm him. Yeah, I agree.
So that's the predicament I think a lot of the team and the owners are in. Like, I do think it's interesting and man, like, we might get into the Giants a little bit later in the Caleb Williams topic, but it's like, man, without him, like it's becoming very evident, just how valuable he is to the team. But like the Giants just paid Daniel Jones a ton of money. Like, I don't know if they'd even want to sign Saquon and lock him up. And I definitely think he's a candidate to get traded if this continues and the season, just keeps falling apart.
Yeah, and that's why. Because think about it. Right now, Eckler and Saquon Barkley is not playing. They shouldn't have played. They should have took the route that Jonathan Taylor took. Now, I'm not saying it would have guaranteed them anything. Nothing is guaranteed when you don't control it, right? When you don't control the check, nothing is guaranteed. But it would have been a step. You're not playing right now anyway because you got hurt. So you could have missed. How many weeks Eckler missed? He only played week 1. Missed 4 weeks. Saquon Barkley missed the last 2 to 3 weeks or whatever. They shouldn't have played. They should have held out, until they can. Maybe they would have had to come back eventually. They would have probably got fined or whatever. But they should have started the year holding out like JT did and applied pressure for the Giants to cave, because now we don't have that sample size of the Cowboys where we got smoked with you on the field. We don't have the, sample size of us having to crawl our way back from a tanking team in the Cardinals who, with all due respect, they're not really trying to tank. They're trying to compete hard. But still, my point is that what if you never showed up and the Giants look this bad? Then it will actually be a more clearer depiction of, we really did need Saquon. And they probably would have paid you. So that's why I think Jonathan Taylor got his, because he worked for it. Yeah, the situations had to align. I get it. But yeah, he wasn't taking no mess. He was like, listen, trade me. And he got his deal, and he got one of the most egotistical guys in freaking, what's this guy's name again, man? What's his name again? Irsay. And Jim Irsay, the cave. This guy's an egotistical guy. He got him the cave. So I thought they should have did more and not get frustrated at that Zoom meeting and settle for these 1-year deals. And now this is a golden opportunity for both Eckler and Saquon to try to put some pressure on the Giants and the Chargers.
One last point on this, and I'll say, like, I know I brought his name up before, but like, man, the Jets should pay Breece Hall right now, because it's clear the value to that this guy has to the team, and they're just a different team without him. Like, having that guy, a home run threat coming out of the backfield, he really is showing, like, okay, in some certain instances, like, the running back position is really worth it. He's one of those guys where on Sunday you just felt like, man, he was just so close, carry after carry after carry, to breaking one and going all the way. And that's ultimately what happened at the start of the second half. But yeah, a guy like that, who, when you have a quarterback that isn't really the focal point of your offense, that is just, trying to give the ball to his playmakers like Breece Hall, McCaffrey, Barkley, a lot of those guys have been showing their value. And that's really, in some instances, like where my opinion in some ways has shifted on this topic.
One last point, and I'm pretty much done, is I always thought that was overblown, the value part of the topic. Like, I understand why, you don't really want to pay a running back, right? First of all, you're going to have to pay your quarterback. Somebody's not going to get paid. You're going to look for that position that may not be as valuable to a quarterback, right? Like a running back, whatever. Because you could, you got guys like A-Chain and even the dude Jaleel McLaughlin, right? We share the same name, right? Coming in there looking good, but it's more about the injury risk. It's about the hazard.
You have the examples, right? Todd Gurley,
Yeah,
all of these guys, Zeke signing the
yeah,
big deal in Dallas. Like, there were a couple examples that happened like really close to each other that kind of, drove these teams away from really signing those.
yeah. It's the injury history, and they decline faster, and that's why I think, if anything, something should get taken. As far as how to fix that in the beginning, like how to, get a hazard pay upon signing the contract, a hazard bonus or whatever when you sign that contract, because of the back end, we know you're going to decline. But I disagree with the value. Running backs are valuable to their team. Like, we can sit there about the longevity. I get that part, and I get the other part about the injury history. But when they're on the field, they are valuable, and that has always been the case. A lot of people talk about, you don't need 1,000-yard rusher to win the Super Bowl, but Pacheco had 100 yards in that game. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's overstated as far as the value to the team. The running backs are valuable. They get you the short yards. They get you in the end zone when you're at the goal line, right? Those things matter. So people try to talk about the value. I think it's in the wrong direction. If you want to look at it from longevity, injury history, I 100% agree. But as far as the value, they are valuable. Maybe not as valuable as an offensive lineman. Maybe not as valuable as a wide receiver. Maybe not as valuable as a quarterback. In some instances, they are. Giants is one of those situations.
Yeah, it's funny though. You bring up Pacheco, like it's funny. Like the Chiefs, they took a running back in the first round like a few years ago that just busted, and then they draft Pacheco in like the 6th or 7th round, and all of a sudden like he's doing exactly what they thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to do. So at the same time, like when you spend premium assets like a lot of money on running back, like it could blow up in your face. Kind of like what happened with the Jets and Le'Veon Bell, kind of like what happened with the Rams and Gurley. I just think they're like very specific scenarios, like Saquon, like Hall, like McCaffrey. You just have to be very smart with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is situation. You gotta look and evaluate your team. If I lose this guy, if he holds out, then my team will not be good. I'm trying to contend. A lot of it is situational, but I do think that if anything, we shouldn't get the investment in taking running backs high in the draft and confuse that with why you don't pay running backs. Because even though A-Chain and Jaleel McLaughlin are low draft picks, and Pacheco is a low draft pick, they still is a running back. They still are running backs at the end of the day. That's giving you production, whether they was drafted in the 1st round or the 6th round. That just tells you that you don't draft those guys high. But longevity is one thing of the position. It's not a long-term thing. It's 3 to 4 years. And that's why most of these guys, these teams, we shuffle running backs. That's how they do it.
Yeah, I bet the Dolphins are pretty happy that they decided to pass on Dalvin Cook. But one last point I wanted to bring up on the Colts. I've spoken a lot about Taylor and everything going on with him, but I just wanted to say, man, like I've been very impressed by them throughout the first 5 weeks of the season. Like I think right now they're one of the more underrated teams in the league, and I think like if they were doing this exactly what they were doing now, if they were doing it last year when they had Matt Ryan and like those high expectations going into the season, I feel like people would just be talking about them way more. But it's just the fact that they're doing it with, a first-year head coach, a combination of a rookie quarterback and a journeyman quarterback. That's like why they're not really getting a ton of attention. Their offensive line, which really struggled last year, is playing really well. And I just feel like there's a lot of football left. And I've just been very impressed by the way this team has been playing. Like, I think Shane Steichen is really building something. And next week, it's crazy. They're going to be playing Jacksonville for the
first
second
place.
time, for first place. And like, that's kind of a house money game for the Colts. Like, they never win in Jacksonville. I know that Jacksonville went into their house and beat them week 1, but we both even said it. Like, there's no way the Jaguars don't win this division, right? Like, if the Colts go into Jacksonville and beat the Jaguars on Sunday, maybe we're singing a different tune. It's looking like Minshew is going to be starting in that game. I bet he's going to want some revenge on his former team. And I know we did our quarterback rankings at the start of the season. It's always like a little hard when you have a quarterback competition. Like, who are you going to rank? So both of us decided to rank Anthony Richardson ahead of Gardner Minshew. But like, Gardner Minshew is one of the 25 best quarterbacks in the league. And when he's out there, you're going to have a chance to win.
Yeah, I think a couple things. When you talk about why a lot of people are not talking about the Colts, is because they are sneakily going under the radar. Like, for example, when you look at CJ Stroud and the Texans, we see this rookie quarterback whom a lot of people doubted, right? The consensus was, okay, you really want to go Bryce Young, then you probably want to go AR-15. He offers you a lot of upside. CJ Stroud doesn't. But when you look at the games, CJ Stroud, by far, is playing the best out of any of the rookie quarterbacks that was drafted in that class. And that's why they are being talked about a little bit more as far as the impressive games that he's able to string together, throwing 300-yard passes, passing yards, a game. And the wide receivers that they have, and Tank Dell and Nico Collins. And I think they're being more, okay, I see what you're doing. With the Colts, they are winning games in very unorthodox ways. For example, you have AR-15 playing 1 week. Then it's Gardner Minshew coming in relief when he goes down. And that's like a 2-quarterback system when you think about it. And we all know in the NFL, if you have a 2-quarterback system, you don't have a quarterback. But in their situation, it's, situational why they have a 2-quarterback system. Also, they have a 2-running-back system. Zach Moss has been carrying the bulk of the workload when JT was out. Now JT's back in, and Zach Moss is still killing it. So you have 2 running backs that's, 1A, 1B. You have 2 quarterbacks. So you're winning games. It's like, that's not how it looks in the NFL. But the NFL changes, and they are winning games, and Shane Steichen is doing an amazing job. He's showing why he's a very good play caller. And I think this week is a golden opportunity for the rest of America to wake up if they win that game against Jacksonville, because they will be in first place. And now we definitely have to talk about them going forward if they win that game.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.